Our next presenter is really, you want me off the stage, is Pauleena Macdougall, Director of the Maine Folklife Center. She received her PhD in American History from the University of Maine in 1995. She serves as Faculty Associate in Anthropology at the University of Maine, where she teaches courses on folklore. And since 1979, Macdougall has published numerous papers and 2 books: The Penobscot Dance of Resistance, Tradition and the History of a People, and Fanny Hardy Ekstrom, in her search for local knowledge, 1865-1946. She is editor of the Maine Folklife Center's annual monograph series, Northeast Folklore, and serves on the board of directors of the American Folk Festival on the Bangor waterfront. Please welcome Pauleena.
The airline road connects communities between the Penobscot River and the Scoodic River, and is presently designated as Route 9. Its passage over the almost 1,000-foot, 300-meter-high hills of southeast Maine led local humorists to call it the Airline Road, as opposed to the lower shoreline route of Kings Highway on Route 1. In 1976, Maine students Joan Brooks and Jack Beard, and later John and Jane Dudley of Alexander, interviewed residents along the road and asked them to tell their life stories. These interviews are at the Maine Folklife Center's Northeast Archives and form the basis of my presentation today. The airline provided essential transportation for people and goods and mail beginning in the mid-19th century. George Sprott opened a new stage route that traveled between Bangor and Calais 6 times a week. In a warning to the clients who might switch their allegiance, it's not changing. There it is. From the shoreline to the airline in 1860, a New York newspaper carried this woodcut warning people not to take the airline road because wolves would chase the stage. Yeah. The interviews reveal a story of pioneering life. Most residents farmed about 100 acres of land. They grew crops and livestock to sustain themselves. They'd butcher a hog or a cow in the fall and hang it in a shed outside where it would stay frozen all winter. And farmers cut ice from the ponds and hauled it on sleds and cut wood on their own land and sold it to local mills. In the winter, the snow on the airline road was packed down, not plowed. People didn't travel far in any season. 20 miles was about the limit. Local water-powered sawmills that bought the wood from the farmers. And the interviewee, Adelbert Cluley, declared that $300 a year was a pretty good income back then. The dirt road was muddy and rutted, but mail was delivered in summer by wagon and in winter by sled. Most items that people needed could be traded with neighbors from farm to farm. But for some items, they turned to the Sears and Roebuck catalog to purchase those things they needed. Farmers raised sheep and sent their wool out to be carded, and the women made the clothing for the family. Wives also made butter, which they sold along with turnips at the farmers market in Bangor. Women did all of the housework and cooking and helped with the haying, but they did not tend the garden. The produce was brought to them into the kitchen for cooking and preserving. Women also served as the midwives and herbalists for the local community. Winters were long and cold, and so people looked forward to getting out in the spring. Spring came later then, with the last frost expected around June 1st. Residents knew it would be a hard winter with hog spleen, potato peels, and corn husks were thick. Rain could be predicted by dark spots on a chicken breastbone, whereas white spots meant snow. Most people went to grammar school, but not high school or college. After completing school, they would work on the farm. Childhood chores for the boys included sawing and chopping firewood and feeding the livestock, and for the girls, helping with household chores. Everyone belonged to the Grange, which was the center of political and social activity. The Grange held a Saturday night social where people would eat beans and brown bread, play cards, dance, and tell stories. 2 people would be chosen to organize the entertainment for these events. The card game most often mentioned was a game called 63, which is still popular in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It is similar to the pitch game. Dancing consisted of square, contra, and quadrilles. A local fiddler, a pianist, or a cornet player might provide the music for the dance. And people enjoyed a local baseball team in the summer, or would go visit their neighbors, or go on a picnic or recreation. A poor farm was constructed. The interviewers were hoping to get information about poachers and use some pictures of some folks that got a moose, but they weren't interested in talking about that. They admitted that everyone got a moose, but the meat was shared, not sold. Delbert Cluley did know of one man who sold game and rum and ended up in jail as a result, but his wife kept the business going for him. This is a close-up of George Magoon, who was a notorious poacher and seller of game, and Professor Sandy Ott collected a lot of stories about him. We have all those in the collection. Magoon became a sort of folk hero for the farmers and woodsmen who lived in the area. And this is Wilbur Day, who was another famous poacher from this time and place. He dictated his biography to his wife Susie and told of his escapades in flouting the law, but was arrested by a game warden for shooting deer out of season and served 30 days for the offense. The towns were all dry. No alcohol could be purchased legally, but there were stills, and people made their own home brew. They also made ice cream, which is the treat most often mentioned in the interviews. After World War I, people had to work outside of farming, and many people began working for wages and commuting to other towns to work. This really changed the lifestyle very much. In addition, people began to go to high school and even college in order to compete in the labor market. The last section of the airline was paved in 1973 in Crawford, and many old sections of the road are still visible to the side of the present roadway. The Whales Back, a 2-mile stretch built atop an esker in Hancock County, was one of the most notable features of the highway. And though they leveled it all out, a lot of people missed the enjoyable thank you bumps that were along that. The roads over Chick Hill and in Clifton and Pine Hill on the line between townships 22 and 28 were both abandoned because they were too steep for cars to make it over. And so they made some major route changes. That's a picture of Chick Hill. Some of you may have climbed it. So the narratives from residents of the airline road provide a perspective of community history from human memory. The value of these and other oral histories lie in the conservation of culture revealed in local knowledge, including local values and opinions. These interviews offer a glimpse into a past world that we otherwise could not experience. Doesn't look like anything.